Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to the Sunday Night on the Beach show. I'm going to try and recap a little weekend news for you and maybe spend a little bit ahead forward. I did a special list tonight just for this show of my favorite college football stadiums. And everybody kind of evaluates a college stadium in a different way, right? For me, it's just kind of the whole thing, the whole ambience, the whole environment, the nature of the crowd, the tradition, I guess the sightline. I guess it just the feeling that you get when you go into a different stadium. And I don't know how many of you experience that, but one of the things in my career that I suppose has propelled me, that I've always enjoyed, whether it was when I covered basketball, when I covered college football, when I covered NASCAR, baseball, was going to a new stadium. You know, it was like I've never been there before. And I can remember certain moments in my career where I was just absolutely slack-jawed. One of them, and I don't know how many of you have done this, was when I drove to Pittsburgh. If you go through this tunnel, I can't remember what drive, I guess I was coming from Ohio, and you come through this mountain of a tunnel, and all of a sudden Pittsburgh is there. And it looks like Oz, and there's all these incredible bridges, and you're thinking, this isn't the Pittsburgh that I saw on television. On television, every time we saw Pittsburgh, it was gray skies and smokestacks and I guess all the right moves with Tom Cruise and clouds. But going to Pittsburgh blew me away. And I actually covered a baseball game there in Three Rivers in the 90s. And it was remarkable. So Pittsburgh, one of those surprise cities. First time you go to it, you're like, holy cow. I never dreamed that Pittsburgh was a beautiful city aesthetically, but it was. Well, it's kind of like that when I've gone to stadiums, or like I said, even when I covered NASCAR. I used to love going to different NASCAR tracks, like wondering, you know, what was the Brickyard? What was the Indianapolis? What was it going to look like? What was Indianapolis Motor Speedway going to look like? Well, there's a golf course that goes through the middle of it. That's the first surprise, and that's pretty remarkable. So Indianapolis Motor Speedway was pretty fantastic. Daytona, pretty fantastic. Bristol Motor Speedway, incredible environment, unbelievable spectacle. Not so much for football. I did the football game. I covered the Tennessee-Virginia Tech game there. Horrible for football because you were so far back and you couldn't see anything. But for a NASCAR stadium, it was a coliseum. It's completely enclosed, skyboxes, the cars. I put it on the same level as when I covered Augusta National in terms of just color and spectacle and environment. I had Bristol Motor Speedway right there. So I covered London Olympics, going to London Stadium, opening ceremony. Bill Hancock, the college football playoff czar. The guy that I guess I upset when I said a couple years ago Georgia should have been in and that the Oklahoma 80. Bill Hancock was running the show. Bill was the one that hooked me up with the credentials to go to the opening ceremonies in London in 2012. I'll never forget it. It was amazing. So seeing different places, going different places, it kind of motivates the travel, right? I guess maybe for some people it's Mother's Day. I guess if you ask the wife, she'll tell you beaches, right? Well, they do it for me too. I think I've been to just about every beach in Florida, and I have kind of an idea what beach I really like. Naples. Been to Naples? Love Naples Beach. So the whole travel, the whole environment, that's something that stokes me. That's something that I've recognized when people say, man, you work a lot of hours. Why do you do what you do? I like to travel. I like to see different things. I like to write about different things. I like to try and capture the environment and share it with y'all, if not in print, on video. So tonight, I did my top 20 college football stadiums, but I've got to tell you, there's one stadium I haven't been to, and everybody tells me it's amazing. I'm just going to get it out of the way. It's on my bucket list, and that's Husky Stadium up in Seattle. My buddy Ted Miller I worked with in Mobile, Alabama. Ted went on to work in Seattle, worked for ESPN for years, did Pac-12. Everybody tells me how great Husky Stadium is, and I was going to go there this year, and I decided not to because it was on Georgia's bye week. And I just thought, flying across the country to that game and then trying to fly back, am I going to have enough juice for my Georgia job? And I talked to my boss. He said, hey, it's your weekend off. Do what you want. And I just thought, it's early I just didn't know if I could give Georgia beat the same juice if I flew across the country to a Washington. So I didn't do it. I said, you know what? I'll save that for another day. I'm covering a championship program at Georgia right now, and I got to be 110 every game day, every game week. Kirby's press conference on Monday, Kirby's press conference on Tuesday, player press conference on Wednesday, writing on Thursday, sometimes travel on Friday, and then a really long game day on Saturday, which I'm not complaining about. I love it. The folks at Georgia make that stadium about as hospitable as any. And anyway, so I'm going to get to that list of my favorite college football stadiums. While I'm going over my plans here, I want to catch you up on Arian Smith, his surgery. I want to tell you about Mark Emmett's press conference on Friday. We'll take a look at recruiting, and we'll get to the list. While I'm doing that, I want you all to nominate what are the best stadiums, best college football environments that you've been to. Could be a bowl game, could be a team, could be Big Ten, could be SEC, could be ACC. You tell me, where have your best experiences been? Drop it in the comments. I want to see it, and then I'm going to get to my list. So I want to start out talking about Arian Smith. Arian is the fastest player in the Georgia 2020 signing class, the number one signing class in the country, one of 5 receiver signees. He's from right there near Tampa. You'll remember he won the fastest man competition at the Under Armour camp. And the other day, he put out on his social media, on his Instagram account, he had his arm in a cast and said surgery went well. And you're going, oh my gosh, what happened here to Arian Smith? So I wrote a story yesterday. Some of you might have saw the first story that said, speedy Georgia wide receiver undergoes surgery, status uncertain. Didn't know what it was. Broken arm, broken forearm. Sometimes those can take 4 to 8 weeks. That can affect his ability to compete for the season. I found out today, Arian Smith had a broken bone in his wrist. Didn't do an interview with him. Just he shot back a message and said, hey, it was a broken bone in my wrist. I suffered it during the season. So this was, I guess, an elective surgery. He knew he had to have it. Probably wanted to have it earlier. But with all this crazy COVID-19 stuff, the elective surgeries aren't as available. So he probably got it done in time, where I believe his recovery window is such that Arian Smith can compete for snaps when Georgia gets back on campus in July. You remember President Jerry Moorhead said that's the game plan, to get the student athletes back on campus in July. We'll see how that works out. So I want to catch up. So that's first things first. So Friday, the NCAA holds a press conference, and Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, is on there. And he brings to question, what does it mean? Here's his exact quote. What does it mean if you look at a conference, for example, if a conference has some schools open and some not? So we're talking about the possibility, let's just say in the SEC, just as a for instance. So we know Georgia's open, right? Georgia's on the very aggressive side. I'm like you all. I'm looking at the COVID-19 numbers. Want to see what they look like. So far, so good. I don't know where we'll be in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. But anyway, we know Georgia's open. We know a lot of these schools are starting to declare that they're going to be open this fall for class. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that there's one of the 11 Southeastern Conference states says we're not ready to open it up in July. So what happens with the rest of the league? Does that mean everybody has to wait because state X decides that it's not ready to open? Or do you go ahead and open and say, well, tough luck, sorry, we're good and we're good to go. We know there's going to be a season. I turned it around like this, because I get that everybody wants a perfectly level playing field, but it's already not level. Clemson was halfway through their spring drills. Are we going to take those practices back from Clemson? No. I mean, it is what it is. And that, I know people hate the saying, but the pandemic doesn't play by anybody's rules. So it's going to be different. It's going to, and Emmert says, yeah, it's going to be a unique season. Well, yeah, no kidding. It's going to be a very unique season. And the new normal is not going to look anything like the old normal. We're all going to be put out a little bit. None of us are, we're all going to be somewhat inconvenienced by this. It's not meant to be. We're so spoiled in our country. We have such a great country. And I have been other places, and I have seen we have such a great country. We're so spoiled as Americans. We're going to be inconvenienced for a while. It's not going to be exactly like we want it. Mask, no mask, I don't know. I went to the supermarket for the first time yesterday. I wore a mask. I'd say about 75% of the people in the store were wearing a mask. I guess it varies. I don't know what that means, right? The Surgeon General said, well, actually, you shouldn't wear a mask because you touch your face more often if you do. I did. I touched my face more often than I did. Did it save me from the COVID-19 virus? I don't know. It was an awareness thing, though. And I'm going to give people the courtesy of wearing that mask so they know that if I cough, they're not going to go, oh my gosh, get the guy out of here, right? So, and I saw the studies that both people are wearing a mask. There's a 99% chance. look, all this stuff, I'm just going to abide by what they tell me to do. I'm a citizen. It's my job right now to follow the provisions that they put in front of me. If I go to Sanford Stadium this fall and they tell me that Brandon Adams is going to be 6 feet to my left and Chip Towers is going to be 6 feet to my right instead of right next to me like they were the last 2 seasons, so be it. If they say that they're not going to serve food in the press box anymore and I need to stop at the Zoe's and pick up a lunch or go to Zaxby's and get the black and blue salad before I go, then that's what I'll do. Sure, it's an inconvenience. I'm used to the free food. I'm used to, oh, boo-hoo. So maybe there's going to be some changes. I want college football, and I'm willing to do whatever they ask me to do to be a part of college football returning. And I understand it's not going to be a level playing field. I understand Clemson had, 6, 7, 8 spring drills, and Georgia didn't even start. I get it that Clemson had a head start. But I'm not going to ask that Clemson has 6 less practices in the fall any more than I think a conference should wait because one state doesn't open up. I mean, it like I said, I keep saying it is what it is. We're trying to move forward in a safe fashion. And if some states are safer than others, so be it. The fact of the matter is, some states are already safer than others, even before COVID-19. That's just the reality of it. I remember one basketball game in Newark, New Jersey. And I remember specifically everybody saying, do not park further than 1 block away from this basketball arena. And it was the only time, when you talk about safety, they talk about safety. Don't park more than a block away. Don't park at all. Get a cab. Have them pick you up at the door. You want to talk about dangerous? Go to Newark, New Jersey sometime. The heck with COVID-19. Try and take a subway 1 o'clock in the morning somewhere. I mean, look at that. I got to get a slug of green. I'm already wound up. Why am I wound up? There's no reason to be wound up. We've just had a very nice Mother's Day. By the way, happy Mother's Day to all of you watching. I went on my Facebook and wished my mother a happy Mother's Day. My daughter is a mother. I wished her a happy Mother's Day. My ex-wife, the mom of my kids, you bet. I wished her a happy Mother's Day. And I wish all of you a happy Mother's Day. I mean, think about what mothers do just for a second. I woke up thinking about that. And this is where I get my intangible, right? Just like creating life. Wow, that is something to celebrate, folks. That's pretty dang amazing in the middle of all this. All right, that was quite a tangent. Somehow we got there. You know my feelings about that. Now, one of the questions that came up that people are talking about, is the Power 5 going to break away? Is this going to just, because if Mark Emmert, and I will say this, there does seem to be a nature for some people to move the goalposts, right? So we say that college students have to be back on campus. Okay, so maybe they're back on campus, but what if they're back on campus, but the majority of them are taking online classes? Some people say, oh, well, that doesn't count. Well, why doesn't it count? We're going to see more virtual learning and more online activity moving forward anyway. This obviously just speeds that up, right? Cuts the curve. We because of the pandemic, we're going to be safer, we're going to space. But a result of this, I believe, and I said this from the beginning, an end result of this is that more student athletes are going to be taking online classes, period. They're going to be, look at Joe Burrow, didn't go to class for 2 years at LSU, right? I mean, do you think that was an advantage for LSU? You think? I think it probably was. Is it realistic to ask the students to traipse across campus and carry books and live this crazy full schedule student life and then also get up at 5 a.m. and practice and work out for an hour and a half and then go to the training room and get treatment for 2 hours and then run to class and then be back by 3 o'clock and go through a 2.5 hour practice and watch film for 2 hours and get back to their room at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night? Is that really realistic? Is that really what we want these students? That's ridiculous. I worked a full-time job in college. Sometimes I worked 2 jobs. And this was after being in the military. I'd had 3 years of military training, 3 years of time management training, and it was still a struggle for me to work 40 hours a week and take a full class load. And I was a 20-year-old guy with 3 years of military experience that was doggone motivated. And my work time wasn't hitting and knocking heads with other guys and getting blown up in practice. It was standing in the American Eagle telling somebody they look good in a striped polo shirt and keeping track of how many dollars per hour I was selling at the American Eagle, or it was working at the Record Land and seeing, you know, that LL Cool J's On Bad Tape was selling off the shelves and knowing what to recommend to people and telling them that they would like, what was it, The Cure? Yeah, you'll like this music, right? And you know, and then it was at the newspaper, which wasn't even like a job. For me, that was fun. So I feel for the athletes because I know what they're going through, and I think the online, it's going to come out on the other end of this, more online learning. So, but my point that I started with, I don't want people moving the goalposts on me. I don't want people saying, man, we're willing to do anything it takes for college football. And then college football people, they come up with all these different plans. And then somebody goes, well, no, wait a minute. Now you got to have fans in the stands or you can't. Look, no. Or, you know, you got to have college campus back in session. Okay, we'll have college camp. Well, but you got to be in person. No, quit moving the goalposts. Understand and realize that there's going to be some sacrifices made in order for us to have college football. There's going to have to be some give. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a level playing field. It's not going to be just like it was. We're all going to have to give a little bit. And it's not going to be equal from state to state. You just got to understand that. This season will be different. That's just how it is. So take it or leave it. I'm taking it. I'm taking it, folks. That's my thought on that. Now, when we were talking about does the Power 5 split, no, and here's why. And this flew under the radar in 2014. So you just Google Autonomy 5. You know, when Greg Sankey at the whole start of this deal, and I talked about this on the show, when he started saying that he talks with the Autonomy 5 commissioners once a week, I was like, Autonomy 5? Does he mean Power 5? No, he meant Autonomy 5. Because in 2014, the NCAA Division I Board of Directors voted 16-2 to allow the schools in the top 5 conferences to write their own rules. In 2014, the quote from the then chairman, Wake Forest President Nathan Hatch, and I don't know if Nathan's still the president or not, but he said, quote, "This keeps Division I together. I'm thrilled that Division I and all its virtues can be maintained. I think this is the pathway to do it." In other words, we got to let these guys do what they want to do because they got all the leverage. And football's where all the money's at. So there you go. So they already have the power to do what they want to do. And that's kind of the missing ingredient when the people go, oh, but the NCAA president said he doesn't got the power. Believe it or not, he doesn't have the power. The conference commissioners have the power. Listen to Greg Sankey. That's my advice. Listen to Sankey. Sankey's going to tell you right now on a lot of things he's going to say, I don't know. Sankey's going to say right now, I don't deal in hypotheticals. But when Sankey talks, listen. Because he's going to shoot it straight. He's not going to throw roadblocks up for no reason. They've got a lot of provisional plans in place, but they're not going to throw them out there. Because every time you start throwing different ideas out there, there's this group of people and all they want to do is shoot them down. All they want to do is tear it apart. The negative Nancy's, right? Guys like me that want to say, hey, wait a minute, that won't work because of A, B. So they just say, hey, we don't need to talk about these plans because we don't have to decide yet. Here's the thing, though. The clock is running. They have to decide soon. If they're going to bring the student athletes back on campus in the middle of July, which I believe they will, then they got to start making plans on how they're going to do it. The key term is re-socialization. That's a new word in our vocabulary, folks. The re-socialization means us hanging out together again. Re-socialization. The 3 buzzwords for the NCAA are going to be testing, tracing, and treatment. You will hear this often. Also, if you watch the show Friday night, you saw me talk about what the NBA is doing. I'm not going to recap it because I want to get to my stadium list so we can start arguing about that. Something fun. This real life stuff. Talking about pandemics, talking about politics, governors, federal laws, NCAA. That's not why I'm a sports writer. I'm a sports writer because I like to watch sports and write about sports. Because when I got done playing, I wasn't done with it. I'm still not done with it. I love playing sports. I'm over the hill. I shouldn't be. But I'm still out there trying. Because I love it, man. And I'm not here to write about crime when people go, I always let people, oh, look at this. Mike Griffith wrote a story about so-and-so being arrested. Oh, he loves to do that. You know what? I hate to write about that. But that's part of the job, man. It's part of the job. Oh, Mike, look at Mike. He's digging NCAA investigations. No, look, that's part of the job. Doing FOIA requests, informing my audience. It's not just the game on Saturday. There's a lot more to it. And if you cover the school, you got to cover the crime, you got to cover the NCAA violations. It comes with a turf. Put the big boy pants on, be a journalist, do your job. Don't be the spoiled sports writer, because we are a little spoiled in sports. Now, we give it back on the weekends. We give it back with the time we take away from our families. There's a sacrifice, but guess what? Everybody makes sacrifices for what they really want to do. And I'm not sitting here complaining about it one bit. My top 20 stadiums. Number 20. You're going to call this a homer pick. Go ahead. But if you haven't been there, you can't question it. Number 20, Spartan Stadium in East Lansing. Listen, they've done a great job with Spartan Stadium. Not only do they have this huge jumbotron on one side of the stadium, but they have 2 replay screens on the others. And you know what? Some of you may know that from the old NCAA football game. Like when people go, oh, you got to bring back NCAA football. I loved NCAA football. Not just because it played fight songs, not just because it was the last video game I really tried to put any effort into, even though my 14-year-old son was kicking my butt at it, and I'd make him stay up and keep playing, thinking I could beat him, and I couldn't, which was crazy, because I understand football, and he didn't, and he could still beat me. But you know what? I could see the stadiums, and I could see the different characteristics, and they were captured so well in NCAA football. And that's part of what made NCAA football better than Madden, because all these stadiums were so unique in the fight songs and, yes, the dynasty mode. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when they bring it back? Now we're going to have, like, agents involved, because we're going to have to get our players name, image, likeness deals. How ridiculous is that going to be? How's that going to work? Dynasty mode, you don't just trace a recruit on his stars. You got to find a way to get this guy hooked up with an agent so he can make money and come to your school. This is going to open up a whole new world in a year. That's another show. So number 20, Spartan Stadium, East Lansing, Michigan. Number 19, this is the first of 3 memorial stadiums, California Memorial Stadium, Cal. Went out there for a Tennessee game, what was it, 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Berkeley, fantastic game. I think Cal might have won that game. I found out that it's built on the earthquake. It's like on the fault line. Did you know that? This stadium at Cal is built on a fault line. The other thing that happened is there were some naked people up in the trees. I'm not lying. They climbed the trees in a tree stand, and they were naked. During the football game, it was a night game, they were protesting something. Why? Because they protest something in California all the time. I don't remember what it was, but there were naked people in the trees then. That didn't make me like this stadium anymore. I'm just saying that was part of the craziness of Memorial Stadium. And in Berkeley is a cool town. That's the other thing. I walked through the town. I said, this is a cool college town. I could do this. Actually, I couldn't, because I probably would have never got into Berkeley. Very hard school to get into. Had a friend from San Francisco. His name's Diamond Leung. Diamond is Chinese. And he told me how many people from San Francisco tried to get into Cal, and they would only take so many Asian people, he tells me. So he had to slum it and go to UCLA. That's what he tells me. Now, mind you, UCLA is the hardest public institution to get into. But I found this funny that my friend Diamond was complaining about having to go to UCLA. And I said, do you realize they only have a 20% acceptance rate? He's like, I wanted to go to Cal. I couldn't get in. I'll never get over it. Diamond Leung is now one of the editors for The Athletic. He was a tremendous beat writer with me at Michigan State, and he covered the Golden State Warriors. Look him up sometime. Diamond Leung, Leung. Loved working with this guy. Obviously really taught me a lot. And it was just good working with somebody from a completely different background, and someone that grew up in that San Francisco area where, for him, he told me how the academics were. Anyway, side note. Number 18, Beaver Stadium. Beaver Stadium. You may know it as Happy Valley. This was one of the places I was really excited about. I covered the Big Ten for 4 years, and in those 4 years, I got to see every Big Ten football stadium in 4 years. Do you know why? Can somebody tell me how I was able to see every Big Ten stadium in 4 years, but I can't see every SEC stadium in 6 years or 8 years? Does everybody know why? Because the Big Ten plays a 9-game schedule, which is what Kirby Smart is a proponent of. The SEC, if they were to play a 9-game schedule, we would all get to see all these stadiums in 4 years. We wouldn't have to wait 10 years for Georgia to go back to Tiger Stadium at LSU. That may be something that comes out of this. We may see less national games. We might see one less non-conference and one more conference game. Oh, excuse me. Whew. Take a slug of green tea. So number 18, the best way I could describe Beaver Stadium is it's like, it's not congruent. It's not smooth. No, Beaver Stadium is where Penn State plays. It's like they built this part and then this part and this. So it's kind of incongruent. Aesthetically, not real nice. But it's over 100,000 people. And it's an interesting area of the state. It's more country than you would imagine, more countryside. So Beaver Stadium, Penn State, number 18. Number 17, the Mercedes-Benz Dome in New Orleans. I like it. Like I say, it lights up at night. You know, you're within walking distance to the French Quarter. Not real thrilled with the press box seats, but as far as the environment goes, there's been a lot of great games in New Orleans. The Sugar Bowl has always been kind of special to me. In 2007, I was the president of the College Football Writers Association of America. It was great. It was quite an honor. I got to present the Nagurski Award. By chance, I got to introduce Claude Felton into the College Football Hall of Fame. And it was then in South Bend. There was a lot of dignitary. I got to give the national championship trophy to Urban Meyer the day after the game, the sports writers version. They don't do that anymore, by the way. So there was a lot of dignitary things. But one of the things I did that particular year, and it was after after Katrina, was they were redoing the Superdome. And I talked to the people that ran the Sugar Bowl, and I said, you know what? When I was growing up, the Sugar Bowl was pretty special. I mean, there was a lot to the Sugar. I mean, that was the bowl game to watch. If you're an SEC fan, it was all about going to the Sugar Bowl, man. And I told him, I said, you know what? You guys have fallen off. The Fiesta Bowl has passed you by. The Rose Bowl and Miami and the Sugar Bowl, you kind of got complacent. They said, well, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? I said, well, here's some ideas. And I got to give them some ideas for, press operations and hospitality, and talk to them about it was pretty cool. It was a bit part. There were other people involved. They flew 2 or 3 of us down there and took us around the city and through the stadium for 2 or 3 days, and through their tourism department, and gave us lectures and told us what the crime rate really meant, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so the Sugar Bowl, Mercedes-Benz Dome, number 17 on my list. Number 16, another Memorial Stadium, Clemson, Death Valley. Now, some people say, is that all? Well, the truth of it is a great environment. And, they run down and they touch the rock. That's all cool. But it's kind of old. They really need to do some sandblasting on that stadium. It's really not as pretty or as nice as you would think it would be. Now, they did build a great football building, and that's what really matters, is what do the football players think. You make those, they don't care what the outside of the stadium looks like, or the press box, or just, but it was nice, but it wasn't, like if you compared it to SEC stadiums, it'd be maybe middle of the pack. It's just not as aesthetically pleasing as it should. Now, I'm sounding like a spoiled sports writer, aren't I? The cement on the outside wasn't very nice. They didn't have escalators to take you up the hills around there. The parking was hard to, I'm so spoiled, right? But this is what this list is. So 16 is Clemson. 15, AT&T Stadium. Very different than Clemson. AT&T Stadium, Jerry World. You know it as Jerry World. They had the giant scoreboard, the giant video screen over the whole field. And it was pretty cool. But I'm watching the game. So I guess if you like watching on score, that's neat. And it's giant. It's huge. You can see in Arlington, which is between Dallas and Fort Worth, and you can see the Ranger Stadium right across the parking lot. And there's a lot of good Mexican food. But it's not like you're going to go there and walk around. You're going to drive there from somewhere, and then you're going to drive somewhere else. But the stadium itself is magnificent. I would say AT&T Stadium should be on your bucket list. I would make that a bucket list. That's my first bucket list stadium I'll give you. Number 14 is Ohio Stadium, where the Buckeyes play. And outside, it looks wonderful. They've got arches, they've got detailing. You almost feel like you're in Europe looking at the outside of the stadium. Like, wow, there were some people that put a lot of time into this. It's pretty doggone nice. Where it sits, there's a lot of people milling around and walking, and it strikes me there was a bridge we had to cross to get there. It's absolutely packed. You see these SWAT vehicles blocking off streets so there's no traffic. Just the magnitude of Ohio Stadium is impressive. Double-decker. I was there for a freezing cold game when Michigan State held Ezekiel Elliott to 33 yards, and everybody said, oh, they should have just given him the ball more. He carried 12 times. He was averaging less than 3 yards per carry. They had Michael Thomas. You ever heard of him, the New Orleans Saints receiver? They couldn't beat Michigan State that day because it was rain and sleet, and the quarterback couldn't play in bad weather. Simple as that. Michigan State out-toughed him. Great football game, great stadium. But I just, not a top 10 stadium to me. Number 13. Oh, we're going to offend some people here. Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. Bryant-Denny. Now, I spent a lot of years covering the Crimson Tide. I went to a lot of football games in Bryant-Denny before they put that upper deck on the other side. This is crazy. Bigger doesn't mean better. It was better before they put the other upper. That stadium has lost all of its personality. When it was smaller, it was cozy. It was warm. You could look out over the capstone and see the campus. And there was something dignified and majestic about that. This stadium doesn't look anything like it did when Bear Bryant was there. And to me, no, they got out the statues on the outside. Okay, that's great. But I've been there a few times and I just don't feel it. I just don't feel it anymore. So the campus is still magnificent. Tuscaloosa is still a cool little college town. But Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's 13. Now this might blow you away. Here's number 12. Sun Devil Stadium, Tempe, Arizona. You might say Sun Devils, Arizona State. Yeah, they got this mountain right next to it. It's so cool. And you can walk around in Tempe. Now, even though it's gotten a little bigger, more glass, more multiple story structures, Sun Devil Stadium, there's still an allure about it. It just strikes, it's warm, it's college football. I didn't go there last year, but two of my freshman All-American guys did for that Oregon-Arizona State game. They said, Mike, it was an unbelievable environment. I said, I believe it. I was there in 98 when Tennessee won the national championship over Florida State. I was there again in 99 when Tennessee got their brains beaten by Nebraska in the Fiesta Bowl. I was there when Ohio State beat Miami in the national championship game in 03, and one of the Miami players punched a photographer that ran in front of him to take a picture after the game when he's walking off the field crying. I've been at Arizona State. It's an incredible environment. Shane Reagan has been there too. Way to weigh in, Shane. Beautiful. Sun Devil Stadium, number 12. Number 11. Didn't know what to expect because it's so big. Kyle Field, Texas A&M. Wow. Let me tell you, you can't even believe, you're looking at this stadium from the press box, from above, and it looks like it doesn't even look real. It's so brand new. Everything is just so new and big and huge. And Kyle Field might be rated higher if it wasn't so doggone hard to get to College Station. They go, well, you can fly into Houston and drive 2 hours. You can fly into Austin and drive 2 hours. It's hard to get to. And oh, by the way, there's traffic in Houston at 1:30 in the morning. All those stories you heard about Houston traffic being the worst, it's the worst. The tacos are good. The traffic was awful. Kyle Field is an awesome stadium. It's beautiful. It's new. Not so big on them firing a cannon all the time. I kind of get jumpy of that. I don't like those pyrotechnics at games, man. Quit scaring me. They do that basketball game. No introducing. Pop, pop, pop. Dead gun. Stop. All right? I'm in a basketball game. Number 10, Michigan Stadium. As somebody who grew up in Michigan, about 45 miles from Ann Arbor, I'd never been to a game at Michigan Stadium until my first job on the Michigan State beat in 2012. Michigan State went down there, played a great game. I think they lost like 12-10. D'Antonio kicked a field goal from the 1-yard line, even though he had Le'Veon Bell, because he thought his defense could stop him. And instead, the Michigan quarterback scrambled around, made a great. Anyway, Michigan Stadium, it is pretty awesome. It really is. And Ann Arbor is a cool town. I've told a lot of my friends that Ann Arbor and Athens remind me a lot of one another. Ann Arbor is probably a little bit more of a businessy, like Athens, like I've told you before, Athens is like if Epcot had a college football town section, it would be Athens because it's shops, it's bars, and it's restaurants, and it's unique bars, shops, and restaurants that you can't find anywhere else in America. And I pray that they will be there when we recover from this pandemic. We're in the shutdown. I hope these individual businesses, Last Resort, World Famous, I hope they make it through this because I love those places, and they make Athens so special. But Michigan State, Ann Arbor's got some cool places too. The Blue Tractor, some beer can chicken, let me tell you. And it's a little, it's trafficky, but to see 112,000 people, it's pretty cool. And the Michigan fans, they knock it out. They got great tradition there. So I like Michigan Stadium. I've ranked it number 10. Number 9, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. If they had a college team, this to me is the preeminent facility. The reason it's lower tells you how much I value the college environment, how much I value the marching band, how much I value the cheerleaders, how much I value the special cheers and the Gator Chomp and the Go Georgia Bulldogs and the Roll Tide and the Rocky. To me, love that stuff. That's part of the stadium. So even though I think Mercedes-Benz Stadium, if we were grading just stadium alone, is the best stadium in the country. Congratulations, Atlanta. You have done it. That is an amazing facility. The circular replay board, ingenious. The retractable roof, awesome. Awesomeness in Atlanta. Love Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Couldn't love it anymore. But they don't have a college team. So they're only number 9. They don't have a college environment. Sorry, Gary Stokan. What an incredible CEO he's been. I still remember when the Peach Bowl was doing everything they could and scrapping and fighting to get attention, and it was only like it was everybody, like nobody wanted to go there. Let's just be honest. Nobody wanted to go there in the 90s. It was like, well, I'd rather go to Tampa for the Outback Bowl. Well, I'd rather go to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando if we can't go. Oh, we got to go to the Peach Bowl. That was how it was. Now it's like everybody's like, dang, let's go to Atlanta, man. Let's go to that stadium. Let's go to that city. Let's go to Georgia. Let's fly into that airport. It's the best in the world. Now Atlanta, it's up here, right? It's really taken off. Good job, Gary Stokan. Number 8. Now some people, they got it number 1. Tiger Stadium at LSU. Now, to me, I've told this story before. I'm not going to go through the whole story. But the best thing about Tiger Stadium to me is what's across the street. Mike the Tiger exhibit. Unbelievable. Now that is another bucket list item. Got to see Mike the Tiger. You got to see Mike the Tiger. It's pretty awesome. And go by the Maravich Assembly Center. You can see the giant statue of Shaq. That's pretty cool. Tiger Stadium though, I mean, it's purple, it's yellow. They got the board. I get it. Maybe if it was a night game, maybe if Georgia had played LSU at night, I would have a different feeling. But I don't think so because I've covered a night game there. I was there the night game when Sean Alexander ran for like 291 yards, like 274 in the second half. There was nothing special about that to me. But other people, they've got their story. I guess it depends on when you say it. That's number 8. Number 7, and maybe some Georgia fans can't relate. Number 7, Ben Hill Griffith Stadium in Gainesville. This place is so loud. It is so orange and boxy and intense. Love going to Ben Hill Griffith Stadium. The giant alligator outside. It's got a beautiful campus. It's got a great town. I mean, for a college game day, Florida, oh man, you bet. Florida, number 7 on the list. Ben Hill Griffith. This is Gator country. The Mr. 2 Bits guy, and they sing that. I don't even know what the cheer means, but the Gator Chomp, love the Gator Chomp. That's college football. That's cool, man. So Ben Hill Griffith Stadium, you're number 7. Some people have this as number 1. I have it a little lower. I was at the Vince Young USC game. I covered Michigan State and Stanford in the Rose Bowl. I was there for the last national champion. I can't remember what the last national championship game was that I covered there. Blanking on it. It was since the Vince Young game. Anyway, I've been to the Rose Bowl 3 times. It's pretty nice. But the thing that makes the Rose Bowl, again, hard for me to elevate on the list is it's hard to get to. Pasadena's hard to get to. I mean, the parade, it's a lot of trouble. That factors in for me. I don't want to be frustrated and angry by the time I get to the stadium. And let me tell you, the Rose Bowl is hard to get to. And yes, seeing the San Gabriel Mountains, yeah, beautiful. But was UCLA played? Sometimes it's not even full. I mean, it's a bowl setting. It's my highest of the national championship game rotation. As I look at my list, it's number 6. But yeah, number 6, it's still pretty good. Number 6, pretty good. Number 5, Autzen Stadium in Oregon. Did not disappoint. You look at the attendance, you say, look, they only hold what, like 60,000 people, 55, I don't know, something like. How can a stadium this small be that great? It is. It really is. They've got like this overhang. So you got the stands, and then they got like this overhang. It looks like something at a giant fair or something. The sound from the field hits the overhang and reverberates back on the field. Now, Michigan State was convinced that they had some artificial noisemakers, and I wrote about it. And there's still Oregon people that'll troll me about it. I'm convinced there was. Michigan State didn't just pull that out of thin air. They were warned by another Pac-12 school. They got some noise. And here's what Oregon would do. They wouldn't play it when you were on offense. They would play it when you were on defense. Why? Because when they had Marcus Mariota and they had those 4 and 5 receiver sets and they all start shifting around, the defense couldn't communicate. They couldn't hear each other. So they would pipe this loud thump, thump. That was this bass. I don't know where it came from. It's not the only stadium. I got another stadium on this list a little higher up that uses artificial noise that factors in. But Autzen Stadium was fantastic. Oregon was a tremendous road trip. I don't think I'd want to live there. I don't think I would want to go there every season. But is it bucket list? Right on the edge. But it's a fabulous stadium. I will say that. Number 4, here's my highest rated Memorial Stadium, and let me tell you, everything they say about this stadium is true. 375 consecutive sellouts at this stadium, dating back to 1962. Does everybody know what it is? This stadium has 375 consecutive sellouts, dating back to 1962. Memorial Stadium, Lincoln, Nebraska. Now listen, I grew up and I didn't really like Nebraska. I wasn't a Nebraska fan. In fact, I disliked Nebraska. They were so dominant in the 90s. They just ran over everybody. They ran that option. It looked like everybody was on steroids on the offensive and defensive line. Seemed like I always had the best running back. They had these option quarterbacks that were magicians. And watching Nebraska, just didn't like them. Now that I've grown up and I'm not a fan anymore, and I've been to Nebraska a couple times, I appreciate them. And here's what happens at Nebraska. This is true. They don't boo the other team. They cheer them. And they say nice things to them. Hey, good job, number 97. Hey, way to go. Good play. You walk, oh, you're not from here? Where are you from? Let me help you find your seats. Would you like a corn dog? Listen, this is the friendliest crowd on the globe. It's like, wait a minute, don't you understand? You're supposed to yell and scream and say obscenities, and that isn't what they do at Nebraska, I promise you. Now, Iowa, those farmers there, those folks get pretty ornery. They're just outside my tongue. Iowa, oh, they're mean. They're mean. But Nebraska, it's like the nice farmers live in Nebraska and the mean farmers live in Iowa. Let me tell you, Nebraska people are the nicest football fans on the planet, not even close. I promise you. And their stadium is magnificent. Absolute bucket item. I tell everybody, if you're an SEC fan and you want the most SEC-like environment outside the SEC other than these super nice fans, you go to Nebraska. They love their football. It's beautiful. I can't say enough about Nebraska. They'll have me on the radio show every now and then. They might be having a bad day. Call Mike Griffith. He'll tell Nebraska how great they are. It is beautiful. Nebraska, I didn't know it would be that great, but it really was. Number 3, Neyland Stadium. Neyland Stadium. So when I covered the SEC, I told you I started out in 1993 covering Auburn, and then I covered the last SEC stadium that I went to was Neyland Stadium. I'd been to all the other ones. And I went there on game day, or on the walkthrough. We would go to the walkthrough on Friday and interview Coach Stallings. And I walked through the tunnel, and I look up, and I'm like, this is the most vertical college football stadium in the SEC. Neyland Stadium sits right there by the Tennessee River, the Val Navy, the Rocky Top, just a beautiful orange and white stadium. If you can find orange and white attractive, and I know there's many fans from Georgia that are saying orange doesn't look good on anybody, Neyland Stadium is a tremendous game day environment. It's unbelievable, and it can get so loud. It doesn't always get loud, but when it gets loud, it gets crazy loud. So Neyland Stadium is number 3. Number 2, Notre Dame Stadium. Notre Dame Stadium. How can you not like Touchdown Jesus? For the Georgia fans that made the trip, you know what I'm saying. You'll take Notre Dame over the Rose Bowl, won't you? I mean, won't you? You got to take Notre Dame over the Rose Bowl. For you Georgia fans that have been all these places, you got to take Notre Dame over the Rose Bowl because it's the Irish. And the campus, going to the campus, you feel like, I can't spit. Like, it looks like you're on a movie set. Everything is so perfect. There's not a blade of grass out of place. Notre Dame, you go in these cathedrals. I don't care what religion you are. You want to fall to your knees and pray because it's so beautiful. Obviously, it's unbelievable. Notre Dame, the environment, the Irish. But you know what Notre Dame does? They pipe in music while the offense is playing. I was there for a Michigan State game. That Michigan State team that went to the Rose Bowl and beat Stanford should have beat Notre Dame. But there were like 4 or 5 of these ridiculous pass interference calls, phantom calls. Michigan State got robbed. Let me tell you, the luck of the Irish is real. Notre Dame is number 2. Does everybody know what number 1 is? What stadium haven't I mentioned yet? That's right. This is the homer pick, Sanford Stadium. And I would have said this even before I covered Georgia. Sanford Stadium is the best game day environment in the country because it's not just Sanford Stadium or Sanford Drive. It's not just the Georgia fans. It's not just the tailgating. It's not just the way everybody gets dressed to the nines in their black and red. It's that town of Athens. It's those restaurants that I talked about. It's the proximity to Atlanta. It's not that hard to get to. You can walk to the game. You can look in the stadium while they're playing. Sanford Stadium is remarkable. They've got it all. They've got the modern nature of the lighting, and yet you still have the open air, and yet there's still 92,000, and you've got the college town. You've got it all. And I say once again, why do you want to give any game away? Why do you want to play anybody anywhere but Sanford Stadium when you have the best stadium and game day environment in America? And people say to me, they said to me during the Notre Dame game, man, this Notre Dame game, oh, this is so great. When are we ever going to have a game like this again? I say, you could have a game like this every other year with Florida. Every other year with Florida would be like this. Notre Dame game, there were more than 150 private planes that flew into the Athens Clark County Airport. There were so many that they had to drop people off and park their plane at another airport. That's how many. It would be like that with Florida. All these bull gators would come into town. All these high rollers would come in, and the town would be lit with Florida fans and Georgia fans. And it would be magnificent because that's what happens on college football rivalry Saturday. Not some RV park with 50-50 and people that aren't even college fans, but they got tickets from somebody, and there's no college students because they can't really afford it. But a real honest-to-goodness college crowd in Athens, Georgia, for Georgia, Florida. And listen, if you're going to keep doing these neutral site games and playing Clemson and Charlotte and playing Virginia and Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and listen, you know I like Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but if you're going to keep giving those games away, then you can't keep giving the Florida game away. So after 2023, I'm here to tell you that's going to be the end of Jacksonville. I'd bet on it. You know how Kirby feels about it. He doesn't like giving up that recruiting weekend the first week of November, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't. You got to be all in to try and win a title, Georgia. You got to go all in. Put all your resources to beat Alabama because that's what it's going to take. That extra recruiting weekend, that extra home weekend, that little bit less travel for your kids, one less game they got to get on an airplane every 2 years. I have strong feelings about that game. You all know that. I don't try and hide it. people saying mean things now. People, I'm looking at the chat. I was going to get some comments, and people are saying mean things. Wow. I'm sorry. Call your mom and tell her you love her. Or maybe your mom needs to call you and tell her that she loves you if you feel the need to insult me. You know what? Go ahead and insult me. I've kind of gone through it all day today. Last week, I was on the Feinbaum show, and we were talking about Tennessee recruiting, and I said, their class looks a lot this year like it did last year. They're just getting all these commitments earlier. And sure enough, if you look at the rating, when they finished 10th in the nation and 7th in the SEC, the average player rating last year is on par with where it's at this year. And so while it's good for Tennessee that they have 21 commitments, it's a very aggressive strategy. It builds momentum. It gives them the number 2 ranking, and that's great. But at the end, everybody's going to have 23 or 25, and the player ranking is going to matter. Now, the Tennessee fans tell me, well, they're going to get rid of those 3 stars. So they're not really commits. Well, do those kids know that? And what about some of the 4 and 5 stars? You don't think that maybe some of them might go somewhere else before it's so? It's kind of fluid. It's kind of a shell game. Because first of all, we're assuming that these recruiting rankings are accurate. It's not a perfect science. Now, it has gotten better, and I do think there's some validity to it, okay? So I'm not going to tell you, recruiting rankings, but I'm going to tell you it's not a perfect science. So when we look at the recruiting scoreboard, it's not real because it's not signing day yet. So things change. Who's Huddy Harrison, and why is he blowing up our feed? Huddy, do you need attention? Let me find out. Can someone find out who Huddy is and give him some attention? He likes to type things and chatter and distract us while we're trying to have a conversation here. Huddy, are you new to this page? Let me look Huddy up here. Huddy's in Greenville, South Carolina. He's from Atlanta. Huddy, I hope you're doing all right, man. I'm looking at your Facebook page. I see you like bacon. There's your attention, man. We're talking college football, Huddy. And if you want to add something constructive, you can type the comment in there. Otherwise, we just don't do this on Dog Nation. We don't troll on Dog Nation. We talk to one another. There's a little bit of teasing. There's different ideas. We might argue about Justin Fields and if he got enough playing time, or we might argue which stadium's the best. But we don't type a lot of K's and do that kind of stuff. That's stuff that you see like not here. Not what we do. So welcome to the chat. You're welcome to be a part of it. If you've got some ideas or some thoughts, throw them out there. Otherwise, you're just kind of like being a distraction to everybody. And that's not how we roll. That's just not how Dog Nation page does it. That's why I do these things. I do these things Fridays and Sundays, and I chat with different fans, and I'll take questions like right now. If you guys have any questions, if there's a stadium I didn't mention, if you think I overlooked a different stadium that should have been on there, I don't know. What did I say? Iowa was a cool stadium. I'm trying to think what else is a cool stadium that's out there. Oh, yeah, Columbia, South Carolina. That's a nice stadium. It didn't make my top 20. Auburn used to. But Auburn is another stadium that just got old real fast, kind of like Clemson Stadium. You just look at it and you go, they need to sandblast it or pressure wash it or something. They got a new big scoreboard, and Auburn's just not what it was. It's just not what it was. So Auburn didn't make the top 10. South Carolina didn't make the top 10. Duke looked like it had a pretty cool stadium. When I went to Duke, and I didn't get to see with fans in it, but I went there, I was over in that area, and I hadn't really spent much time in Durham. That's one of the things that's on my list, is to see Cameron Indoor Stadium. I haven't been there for a game. That's my basketball bucket list. Husky Stadium is my football bucket list up there in Washington. But Duke has a brand new stadium. It looks very cool. Not big, but it looks really neat. Looks like they've done a really nice job with that. I think David Cutcliffe's done about as good for that program as anybody could do. Haven't been to Wake Forest. Have been to Raleigh. Decent. I've heard Virginia has a nice stadium. I've been to Virginia Tech. Enter Sandman. That's a pretty great environment. Didn't make my top 20. I'd like to go to West Virginia. West Virginia would be another stadium. Graham Nicholson on you're talking about Neyland Stadium. They actually have done a lot of rebuilding around there. They've done a lot with brick around because it used to look like kind of like an erector set, right? That's what everybody would talk about. But having covered, what was that there, 16 years? I've been in Neyland Stadium so much. The only thing, from a media perspective, the press box is pretty high, but I just think it's fantastic. I love that cream color and the orange. I just thought it was a great game day. The tee opening up, all the tradition. That's why it's number 3 on my list. Annapolis, that's a good one, Shane. I've heard the Army-Navy game. That's another one I need to do. The Army. I've been to Maryland Stadium, Bird Stadium. Wasn't that bad. Decent. We got a couple Georgia riders that went there. Mark Weiser, Seth Emerson, they're Maryland guys. Give them a shout out. Maryland, OK Stadium. Rutgers wasn't a bad stadium. Piscataway, New Jersey. The thing I remember about the New Jersey trip, so I didn't know this. I fly into one of those New York airports. Which one was it? Probably Newark. And Columbus Day is a huge deal in the Northeast. Like Columbus Day is celebrated like, really? Like Columbus Day for me was like a free day out of school. Like, okay, you want to give me a desk? Okay, we'll celebrate it. But I didn't remember anybody dressing up like pilgrims or anything like that. You go up there for Columbus Day? So I hadn't reserved a car in advance because I didn't think I would need to. I didn't realize that Columbus Day was going to run. So I get there, the line at the rental car center, you guys have been through this. We've all been through the rental car and you're just going, oh my gosh, I really should have reserved a car because this line, so my plane lands late. It's like 10:30 at night. It's after midnight and all they have left is a smart car. That's it. They're like, oh, this is all we have, sir. I'm like, this thing? It's like a little clown, like this little clown car? Like I could reach across and touch the passenger side door. Not exaggerating. I'm going to drive this thing on the New Jersey Turnpike at 1 o'clock in the morning for my hotel that's an hour away in New Jersey? I, honest to goodness, sent a text, I can't remember who, it might have been my mom, and said, if I die, it's because I'm in a smart car on the New Jersey Turnpike. I told myself, if anything happens, I'm dead. I will not survive a crash. And I'm going 55 in these semis and the turnpike, and I don't really know where I'm going, and I'm just cussing like, this is unbelievable. I'm in a smart car. And that's what I remember about the Rutgers game, was that smart car at the airport. And it was an adventure. I can look back on it and laugh now. Ha ha. It was not funny then. It was not funny. But it taught me a lesson. What is it? Something about not preparing is preparing to fail or something like that? Absolutely failed. That was a fail. I did see a deer when I left the stadium that night. Oh, also the Carolina dog. I haven't told this story yet. South Carolina game 2 years ago. I'm like last man out of the stadium. There's just a lot of Georgia fans. We got to write a lot of stuff. There's enough to write about. You got to stay and you got to write it off for the next day. Because who's getting up at 4 in the morning to write? Not me. So I got to write all that stuff that night. So I'm getting out. It's like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm walking across the parking lot. And I see this dog trotting around. He's not walking like a dog. He's trotting. I say, dogs don't run this way. This is not a dog. This is something different. And he's going around, and people have left different food out from where they tailgated. And I get up about 20 feet, and he looks at me, and I look at him. His ears are tall and pointed. I'm like, you ain't no dog, man. All I could think of, this guy looks like a dingo. This does not look like a dog. But he looked at me. We had a deal. I wasn't going to bother him. He wasn't going to bother me. So he went on his way and continued to find food. And I went on my way and got in my car and drove out of there and said, I'm going to Google this thing as soon as I can get some cell phone service. It was the Carolina dog. Thank you. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. There we go. It was the Carolina dog. Do you know about the Carolina dog? There's such a thing as a Carolina dog. Suddenly I had a new favorite, the Carolina dog. Google the Carolina dog. Listen, this has been a great show. It's gone a lot longer than I thought it would. I had a lot of fun talking about a lot of different things on here tonight. Stadiums, college football future, Carolina dog, smart car, New Jersey. I want everybody to have a great week. I want everybody to stay tolerant. I want you to cap off your Mother's Day. If you haven't already, I'm sure everyone's called their mom or texted her or told their wife or their daughter or their cousin. Moms, make the world go around. I still need to talk to mine. Yes, need to talk to mine at least 2 or 3 times a week. At least. I treasure my mother, and I treasure this audience. And I appreciate you all joining me on my Friday night, Sunday night, Tuesday. Going to try and get Mark Richt on. Hopefully we're going to have him Tuesday around noon. You're going to want to check that out. Tomorrow, is this Sunday yet? Yeah, it's Sunday, right? Yeah, tomorrow, Brandon Adams at 10 a.m. Dog Nation Daily. Everybody, thanks for joining me. Have a great night.